Hey, what's good, cannabis investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan, and today we're coming at you with This Week in Cannabis News from October 28th to November 3rd. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it helps out my channel. And of course, you can subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos. Now, try to think of these videos as a time capsule. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the U.S. cannabis industry, identify top U.S. MSOs that you keep seeing pop up that you think will be worth more in the future than they are now based on their current market caps, new markets coming online, and any reform like Schedule 3 happening, and take advantage whenever you feel ready if you wish to do so. And just a reminder what we have coming this week, there's a lot. Obviously, the elections on November 5th, Florida voting for yes or no on Amendment 3 on November 5th as well, and then, of course, MSO earnings starting that same day as well with Trulieve. So we've got the list here, just bringing you down through it quickly before we move along, and so it's going to be a very big week, and I'm going to have a lot to report on. One of the bigger stories we got this week certainly came as a surprise, highlighting that ALJ Judge John Mulrooney issued a preliminary order today delaying the DEA's rescheduling hearing until January or February 2025. So did that mean that the December 2nd hearing is pushed until the next year? You were reading it the wrong way, Jeff, so glad this person was here to correct him. The DEA allowed 25 participants to the hearing out of all the submissions and sent a letter on the 28th of October to confirm those parties. Now, the ALJ just ordered that all parties need to establish legal standing to determine who will be admitted to the hearing, with arguments due November 12th. If no parties are about to establish legal standing per the court, there will be no hearing. And so from my understanding, we've got prohibitionists basically trying to make an argument due November 12th as to why they have any legal standing, which most of them clearly don't, especially when they're going up against the government and HHS deeming that cannabis is a medicine with that 252-page report. So again, let me know in the comments if I'm missing anything or if you know more. But thank you, Nelly, for this summary. As I've been saying this, and I know other more credible people have said it as well, no one has standing for an ALJ hearing, in my opinion, and I would agree that it's very tough to go against HHS and them admitting that cannabis is finally a medicine. And we might be watching something credible unfolding here. We'd love for that to be the case, but just to highlight what Todd tweeted on November 1st. And so the ALJ hearing was delayed, although there's still supposed to be a procedural hearing on December 2nd. Though why was it delayed? Because the DEA picked the witnesses instead of the ALJ, and the ALJ must now determine who actually has standing. And we know that the DEA has been quite cheeky in the past and have not worked in the best interest of the American people, so who's to say they're not going to try to do that again? And what a DC legal insider is saying that the ALJ calling out the DEA for its irregular handling of this process is positive. I'd say so. An ALJ willing to take the DEA to task is a very good thing, and this isn't about if the ALJ judge is pro-weed. He'll follow the law and give the appropriate respect to HHS, DOJ, OLC, FDA, and weigh the evidence fairly and objectively. We can only hope, right? So a few other comments if you want to pause to read. Otherwise, this is the preliminary order from the ALJ, apparently. Just wanted to share it if you're interested and wanted to reference it. All these links will be in the comments. Now, I'm going to play this quick clip from Denton's lawyer, Eric Berlin, who's unsurprised that the December 2nd hearing will be procedural, still happening, before the more substantive hearing in January and Feb. So just going to play this clip while this full YouTube video will be in the comments as well.
ALJ judge calls into question the standing of participants involved in this hearing. So straight to the point, how should we digest all this? Is this a good thing?
Well, I think it's, first of all, what you just said is that the questioning the designated participant standing is a good thing in my opinion.
Okay.
The fact that we're having a sort of procedural hearing in December and then substantive hearings in the first quarter of next year, I see as neutral. I'm entirely unsurprised by that. I view that as really the likely situation, and I thought getting the hearing done in December was possible but unlikely.
So take from that what you will, though I'd say it is promising that the ALJ is looking at the DEA with some skepticism based on a lot of bullshit that they've pulled in the past. And so, again, a little bit more incredible read-through here. Mulrooney isn't fucking around, according to H.L. Mencken. Mega bullish in the sense that Volunteer posted this. Judge Mulrooney has been around for a while. He made it a priority to streamline the hearing review process, which DEA had a propensity to dragging out for years. And so it looks like he doesn't put up with a whole lot of BS. Not to say that he's necessarily pro-cannabis, but ultimately it seems like he's pro doing the right thing for the American people. For example, now this is a snippet from an article from 2020. It's an older one called DEA Proposes Significant Changes to Administrative Hearings, but the main thing to highlight is this takeaway as since his appointment, Chief Administrative Law Judge John J. Mulrooney II has implemented internal procedures and controls to minimize delay in administrative hearings. And so could have been any judge kind of promising that it's this guy from the sounds of it, where administrative hearings would take several years. They are now typically concluded within a year or less of issuance of the OSC. And so take from that what you will. Let me know in the comments what you think as well. But just wanted to share a few other things. As from Weed Street 420, ALJ hearings will be live streamed during market hours. Get your popcorn ready, ladies and gentlemen. And this comes from a letter from Ann Milgram, head of the DEA, writing to John J. Mulrooney. And so we're going to see that kick off in December. And then lastly, just to highlight, looking forward to riding into the sunset with this dude. Never seen him before, never heard of him before. But if this man does right by the American people, I'm going to be a big fan, and I know that you will be too. And so on to some studies just to highlight, again, why this should have happened decades ago. From MDPI, this one looks at trends in cannabis use among adolescents in the U.S. as of October 15th, 2024, so fairly fresh. And they looked at data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey from 2011 to 2021, which included 88,183 adolescents in grades 9 to 12. And so what were the results? The percentage of adolescents who reported current cannabis use dropped significantly from 23.1% in 2011 to 15.8% in 2021. And you can thank ending cannabis prohibition and legalization in half the states for that. And the self-report of trying cannabis for the first time before age 13 also decreased significantly from 8.1% in 2011 to 4.9% in 2021. So take from that what you will. Of course, you can pause to read more, but the conclusion, in U.S. adolescents in 2021, there were decreases in self-reports of cannabis use compared to 2011 because ending prohibition works and it makes it harder for youth to get access. Can't deny it anymore. The data just speaks for itself. Well, got some more technical ones here, and I'm going to use ChatGPT for some help. This one from Taylor and Francis, therapeutic potential of EVs loaded with CB2 receptor agonist and spinal cord injury via the NRF2H01 pathway. And so from October 28th, so fairly fresh. Looking at the results here, our results demonstrated that EXO plus AM1241 treatment significantly improved motor function recovery, which sounds very promising, of course. It also activates the nuclear factor erythroid to NRF-related factor 2 signaling pathway, thereby enhancing tissue protection against damage and cell death. Now, let's see what ChatGPT had to say when I ask it to explain all that like I'm 5 years old. And so once it finally loads, I'll be able to show you. Right, okay. So imagine you fall and hurt your back really bad, kind of like when you scrape your knee, but this is inside your body near your spine. It's hard for doctors to fix this because there aren't many things that work well to help people get better. But scientists found something that might help. They took some tiny things like little helpers called EXO and mixed them with a special medicine called AM1241. Then they gave this to some mice that had hurt their spines. What they found was super cool. The mice got better at moving around after they were giving this special mix. However, the connection to cannabis comes from the fact that the researchers used a drug called AM1241, which is a CB2 receptor agonist. And CB2 receptors are part of the endocannabinoid system, which we all have in our bodies, at least mammals do, which is found in the body in the same system that interacts with compounds found in cannabis like THC and CBD. And the CB2 receptor specifically helps control things like inflammation and immune responses. Seems like it's kind of important in doctors, and most of us should know a little bit more about it. But this is the kicker. So in this case, EXO, the tiny particles were used to carry AM1241, which works on CB2 receptors connected to the body's cannabinoid system to help reduce inflammation and improve healing after spinal cord injury. Fascinating. This shows how the endocannabinoid system, usually associated with cannabis, might help in treating serious injuries and why there's so much more research we need to do to really unlock this full potential. On to the next one from Cambridge. Advancing the Understanding of Cannabinoids in Psychiatry, October 25th, 2024. Now, I just want to bring you down to 2 paragraphs to highlight as cannabinoids have garnered increasing attention in psychiatry due to their potential therapeutic applications across a range of mental disorders. We still have a long way to go, and descheduling would help us get there as fast as possible, though the endocannabinoid system is integral to the regulation of mood, cognition, and stress responses. And the endocannabinoid system's dysregulation, not the consumption of cannabis, but our own system's dysregulation, has been implicated in conditions such as anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, and neurodegenerative diseases. It's kind of terrifying. And so the articles in the special issue cover a spectrum of topics that highlight both the promise and complexity of cannabinoids in psychiatric contexts. And so all these are links to articles that are referenced. So of course, this link will be in the comments and you can pull them up. But I found this interesting, as ranging from the effects of cannabidiol CBD in a variety of settings to research on the interplay between endocannabinoid and endovanilloid mechanisms, giving new perspectives on fear conditioning. I'd love to learn more about how cannabis affects fear conditioning, or maybe helps you see through a lot of the bullshit, and memory consolidation. And so take from that what you will. There's more information here, of course. You can grab the link and reference the articles that they're talking about as well. But yeah, very interesting results and some promising potential if we were to study it a little further. Well, on to another one from MDPI. Cannabis use and cannabidiol modulate HIV-induced alterations in TREM2 expression, implications for age-related neuropathogenesis as of September 24th, 2024. So I invite you to pause to read if you are interested, but to explain it simply, in our brain there are little helpers that try to keep everything clean and working well. One of these helpers is called TREM2. Sometimes people with HIV can have problems in their brains because their TREM2 isn't working right, and this can cause trouble with thinking and memory. Now, when some people with HIV use cannabis, something interesting happens. What do you know? Fascinating. It seems to help calm things down and reduce these brain problems. The scientists wanted to see if cannabis can fix the TREM2 helper in the brain and make things better. So they did an experiment with mice and also looked at people with and without HIV. They found that in the mice and people who use cannabis, their TREM2 helped work better, or the TREM2 helper work better. This gives scientists an idea that cannabis can help fix the brain problems in people with HIV by helping TREM2 do its job better. Incredible findings. And so, moving along though, because there's just more and more of it from MDPI, high CBD extract, CBDX, and asthma management, reducing Th2-driven cytokine secretion and neutrophil eosinophil activity from October 17th, 2024. And so, of course, the conclusion is just going to highlight it right away. Is these results suggest that CBDX extract could offer a novel and complementary approach to managing both type 2 high and type 2 low asthma by targeting key inflammatory pathways and modulating immune cell behavior. And so you can pause to read or grab the full link if you're interested to investigate further. But what does this essentially mean? Okay, so imagine that inside your body there are tiny soldiers, your immune cells, who sometimes get too excited and start a battle when they shouldn't. This can make it hard for people to breathe, which we call asthma. And asthma happens when your airways, the tubes you breathe through, get swollen and sticky because of something called inflammation, like having too much glue inside your air tubes. In some people, regular medicine doesn't work very well to calm down these soldiers, so scientists are looking for new ways to help. In the study, scientists wanted to see if something called CBD, a part of a plant, could help calm down these soldiers and stop the sticky stuff, mucus, from building up. They tried it out with cells from humans and animals with asthma. They found that CBD helped the soldiers calm down by stopping them from sending too many help signals. The signals are called cytokines like IL-5, IL-13, IL-8, and IL-6. When the soldiers calm down, there's less sticky stuff in the airwaves and people can breathe better. So the scientists think that using CBD might be a new way to help people with asthma, especially when regular medicine isn't working well. Fascinating findings. Of course, all the links will be in the comments if you want to go through that. While this is an older one, I think I might have featured it already, but it was making its rounds again on Twitter. So from September 23rd, just to highlight cannabinoids as a natural alternative for the management of neuropathic pain, a systematic review of randomized placebo-controlled trials. Just to highlight what the results say as they speak for themselves, compared to placebo, cannabinoids prove significant relief from chronic pain, 33% compared to 15%. As measured by the visual analog scale. The transdermal application of CBD led to a more pronounced reduction in sharp pain, according to the neuropathic pain scale, and minimal to no side effects were recorded, further highlighting the potential benefits of cannabinoids and why we ought to deschedule this plant already and get it out of the hands of government control. And so with that, though, moving along, the Journal of Pain, fresh as of November 2024, titled "It Frees Your Body from That Pain Thought, a Mixed Methods Exploration of Patterns, Contexts, and Experiences of Cannabis Use for Pain in Rural Communities." And so I invite you to pause to read the abstract. Just going to highlight a few interesting notes. As interview narratives characterize cannabis as modifying pain-adjacent factors, example thoughts, not eliminating the pain itself. And so working differently from opioids, which typically mask the symptoms and don't look at the root cause at all, and kind of numbing you out and then having unintended side effects to them, cannabis essentially helps you change your perception of the pain, which I don't know if that's better or worse, but certainly something to think about, especially if it helps get you off of some addictive substances and helps you work towards recovery. All participants described high medical cannabis access, low pain specialist access, and most physicians as unwilling to discuss cannabis for pain. You wonder why that is. Because they're not incentivized to do so. They're mostly incentivized to push pills and not know about the endocannabinoid system that, when it's in balance, helps keeps us human beings healthy. Ain't that a crime against humanity, sadly. But moving along, well, from MDPI, in vitro anti-tumor effects of oils rich in CBD and THC cannabis extract in canine prostate carcinoma cell lines. And so from October 13th, 2024, this one's for the dogs. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I invite you to pause to read, but in the study, extracts rich in cannabinoid or delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol inhibited the growth of 2 canine prostate carcinoma cells. Fascinating. These results provide new information about the use of these natural compounds in canine models, which gives us the opportunity for further studies both in the lab and in animals to discover how these compounds act in the body using dogs and their endocannabinoid systems as natural models for prostate carcinoma. And so, hey, deschedule the damn plant already so we can move the research further along. Well, a few other studies. First one actually funded by Curaleaf. So we're just going to spend a little time on this and invite you to pause to read or grab the links. But online and unregulated cannabis poses serious health risks with mold, lead, and synthetic cannabinoids detected. And so this is, again, looking at the unregulated synthetic hemp-derived crap that is being sold as real cannabis. And so what did we find? Illegal cannabis sales through unregulated online retailers have increased 50% in the past 2 years. Terrifying, 73% of the legal online market is driven by those seeking relief from health conditions, and sadly, not all of them have access to recreational dispensaries. Tests show illegal cannabis in the UK contains harmful substances such as mold, lead, and synthetic cannabinoids, posing serious health threats to consumers. And I believe this is referring to the same study that I featured in The Guardian about a month ago. I think it was in my second last video before I took that break. Well, Curaleaf International calls for public education, stronger enforcement, and regulatory reform. Let's hope we see that in the UK before the end of the decade to tackle the illegal market and safeguard consumers. Because, of course, the only way to make a safe legal market is to crack down on the illicit crap and end cannabis prohibition outright. Then you're going to have jobs, tax revenue, public health victory of getting people access to this non-addictive, safer medicinal alternative. So, of course, you can pause to read if you're interested. Well, last study, again, just reiterating how unfortunate and dangerous these untested synthetic-derived hemp products acting as cannabis are. From StratCan, the cannabis community, high levels of pesticides found in illegal cannabis vapes as of October 23, 2024. And so this was a study conducted in New Brunswick, Canada, reveals high levels of chemical contaminants in illicit cannabis vapes cartridges, including high levels of pesticide contamination. And again, just to reiterate, these are products not sold through legal government stores or private stores. These are products found still in the gray market, proliferating, and usually hemp-derived, acting as the female cannabis plant that you would get out of adult use dispensaries or medicinal dispensaries. It ain't the same thing, and all the studies that I feature in my videos, these are looking at the female cannabis plant that is the medicine and not the hemp-derived bullshit that is sadly muddying the waters and causing a lot of problems. But with that, moving along to one snippet from each of the presidential candidate sides, essentially in the last little while. Not saying I believe either of what they're claiming here, but do the right thing, just highlighting that on October 24th, Kamala put out a to-do list, and on it was legalize rec cannabis. Now, whether she's going to do that, again, I'll believe it when I see it, but just figured I would share, hey guys, we're number 6 on the list. And thank you, Do the Right Thing, for pointing that out, as is better than not being on it. Well, J.D. Vance was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and this was certainly a good episode. Don't know if you tuned in, but I would recommend it, on the scheduling and criminalization of cannabis in the USA. Thank you, Joe Rogan. I wish you would have talked a little bit deeper on this and helped him see past the whole bad smell aspect of it, but just going to play this clip too and put it up to 1.5 speed so it doesn't take forever.
This is why it's illegal on the federal level. And even though you have medical marijuana that's been shown to help people with chemotherapy and wasting disease, help people that have appetite problems and people in chronic pain, it's still listed as a Schedule I drug federally, which to me is unconscionable. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay. So, first of all, we're not trying to be clear, because I'm speaking as a vice presidential candidate, we're not trying to throw people in jail for smoking weed. That's very much something that we're not interested in doing.
That's the main takeaway. He kind of goes into why he also disagrees with more. Clearly, he doesn't know a whole lot about the subject. All that to point out is that we've got the blue team and the red team basically saying they're not going to be criminal. They don't want to criminalize people for cannabis consumption. And of course, that should have never been the case. And we've never had this going into Tuesday next week. And so we'll see what that means in the long run. But the biggest story that we're really looking out for, essentially, or the biggest thing, is that as of Friday, October 25th, it seems as if 66% of Floridian voters, based on polls, now again, we're just going to have to wait until Tuesday, but they support cannabis legalization amendment, aka Amendment 3. And so while this is very promising, because of course you can't call the free state of Florida free when you've got a governor that's basically trying to squash the rights of Floridians for voting for legal cannabis on the ballot on Tuesday. So kind of crazy. And we know, well, we're going to get into the dirty that he's done more. So of course you can pause to read if you're interested. Otherwise, these links will be in the comments. Though I did notice right down here, it said that they need a 60% voter support to pass. I'm pretty sure it's 63%, but let me know in the comments. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Well, this is the surprising news we got last week, as Ron DeSantis appears to have taken nearly $4 million that was supposed to be spent combating the opioid crisis. And ironically, legalizing cannabis and ending prohibition is one of the best deterrents, as it proves that opioid overdoses go down by roughly 20 to 25% in states that end cannabis prohibition. Can't make that shit up. And burn the money instead on advertising against ballot measures that would legalize cannabis and overturn a statewide abortion ban. And so this is a fascinating read-through. Great job, Jason Garcia, for highlighting this. And just the bullshit, using this money to run TV ads, to spread nonsense. It's ridiculous. And so thank you, Ron DeSantis, for showing your true colors. A bit more down here if you're interested. But yeah, $5.1 million in total, at least, from this opioid fund alone. And unbelievable, really, when you think about it. Now, of course, these links will be in the comments if you want to reference it. Another interesting thing I noted, or I found at least in this Politico article, as DeSantis' war on ballot measures ignites fury in Florida, as this is supposed to be a democracy. And so again, why are you trying to not allow people to exercise their rights as Floridians and vote for what they put on the ballot as an initiative? But all this to point out, especially when you see what he's doing and spreading the bullshit through TV airwaves, the flurry of actions has generated litigation, a rebuke from a federal judge, and assertions that state officials may be breaking laws designed to prevent the use of state resources to influence an election. Yeah, no shit, that's exactly what they're doing, and I hope they get sued into oblivion and face the consequences. But get this, DeSantis himself, what a hypocrite, signed a law 2 years ago that blocks local governments from sending out any kind of communication on local referendums. And then here he is blasting and spewing bullshit and propaganda through the TV airwaves and using the opioid crisis fund money to do it. Can't believe it. No matter where you stand on this issue, this is still a democracy. And in a democracy, we do not spend taxpayer dollars in advance of a political issue. Should never. So John Gruder's holding it down, a Sarasota Republican and former chair of the Republican Party of Florida, said last week tax dollars are meant to be spent on our police, schools, roads, and other public programs that make our state great, not for political agendas. And the irony is that Ron DeSantis is supporting the illicit cannabis industry that does not pay any tax dollars versus the legal cannabis industry that is medical only in Florida as of right now, but once it turns adult use or recreational, is going to bring in a shit ton more tax dollars that will go to these good things. So take from that what you will. Full article in the comments. As Florida, more important than ever. Now, Florida State Senator John Pizzo alleges that DeSantis and the Anti-Amendment 3 group have spent $50 million. So while I think it was last month or so, they were at about 15 or 20 million cumulatively, they've now seemed to have spent $50 million on the anti-legalization campaign, about half of the Visit Florida campaign. And if that's true, just stunning malfeasance from the DeSantis administration, that's for sure. Now, I do not know exactly where this came from. I did want to find the source of the article, though this was just the one thing that highlighted how much they've probably spent in total, so wanted to share that. So if you know more, if you can cite this, please let me know in the comments, as I'd love to read through it a little further, but it's really unbelievable, and for that reason, well, Truliev's got to put their money where their mouth is, adding another $10 million to push for Florida rec cannabis amendment, using some of their cash flow, I'm sure, a week prior to the big day. And so, according to recent finance filings and state elections database, this brings the company's total contributions, both cash and kind, to $113 million as of October 18th. And so, of course, if your governor is going to play corrupt and try to use funds that should not be used in order to defeat you, you gotta do what you gotta do. And so ultimately, all eyes are on Florida on Tuesday, of course, as they are on the election and everything else. And so just let me know what you think in the comments. Get your popcorn ready, because things are about to get entertaining, I think. While from Pablo Zuanic, ladies and gentlemen, anyone that might be interested, this is his updated views on Florida pre-November 5th election. And so it's a 19-page report with equity research from Pablo Zuanic, who's been covering the space for a very long time. And so the current state of the Florida medical market, one of the few markets that is medical only and still consistently growing month over month, which is extremely impressive. So just think of what happens once they go full adult use. However, worth noting that while they might vote yes on Amendment 3 and approve it on Tuesday, likely we won't see an adult use market open up until summer of 2025. So just worth noting that. But of course, lots of interesting information down here. And thank you, Pablo, for making it free for all of us. Well, moving along to other state news, I believe. I don't know if we're there yet. No. Still more on Florida from Green Market Report. Florida's potential unleashes stock rally. Now, I wouldn't call what we've seen in the last few weeks a stock rally, but ultimately just sharing this if you're interested. As Viridian Capital Advisors believes these Florida exposed cannabis companies stand to gain in a big way from full legalization. No shit, that's obvious. But the main thing here is there's some numbers and figures as we calculated the potential impact of adult rec in Florida by assuming that adult rec would have a 2.25x multiplier effect on retail sales on a run rate basis. Florida retail sales for 2024 will be approximately $2.1 billion, spread across an average of 650 dispensaries, and this is for medical only. For an average revenue per dispensary of $3.2 million. The average revenue gain per dispensary of $4 million was used to calculate each company's incremental revenue gain from adult rec. So take from that what you will, and obviously all the companies with a footprint in Florida do stand to benefit big time from Florida going yes on Amendment 3 and legalizing for adult use. But of course, the bigger catalyst will also be that if at the same time cannabis does land in Schedule 3, hopefully by spring of next year before Florida turns on, and we see the removal of 280E, which means most MSOs' bottom line profits will double or triple overnight. So take from that what you will. This left side looking at percentage stock gains in the last 2 weeks as things have gone up or down, but the potential percentage of gain from Florida rec and 280E would just be really the cherry on top. And so more here if you are interested, of course. All the links are in the comments. Moving along to MSO news, is Trulieve to open medical cannabis dispensary in Lake Placid, Florida, hosting their grand opening celebration yesterday, Friday, November 1st. So pause to read, otherwise grab the full link in the comments, but they're gearing up and ready. Whew, 3 days away. Can't wait. And with that, Curaleaf announces opening of new dispensary in Miami, Florida on Bird Road, making it the company's 66th dispensary in the state. And most of these MSOs are following the same game plan. It's still cheap to open up and expand your footprint in Florida now, so do it while you can. And that makes it also 151 total dispensaries across the U.S. for Curaleaf. And so you can pause to read. Otherwise, full link in the comments. Well, from Verano, they commenced adult use cannabis sales at Zenleaf, Waterbury, and Connecticut, as they complete conversion of all 5 Connecticut Zenleaf dispensaries from medical to hybrid sales. And so good on Verano, getting basically having front-runner access there. Situated in Connecticut's 5th largest city with 115,000 residents, Zenleaf Waterbury is conveniently located at this place where you got about 25,900 vehicles going past it daily. In addition to Zenleaf Waterbury, Verano's Connecticut operations include Zenleaf locations in Meridian, Naugatuck, Newington, and Norwich, and the company's 217,000 square foot state-of-the-art CT Pharma cultivation and processing facility in Rocky Hill. And if you didn't know, now you know, as Verano's operations span 14 states, comprised of 152 dispensaries, kind of wild that they managed to get ahead of Curaleaf, and 15 cultivation and processing facilities with more than 1.1 million square feet of cultivation capacity. So, more here if you want to pause to read, or if you're interested in what Verano has got going on. Some other state stories from Green Market Report, as New York could be a $3 billion market in just 2 years. Oh, the potential of what could have been. Fortunately, better late than never, and it seems like 2025, in line with Florida, is going to make this next cycle we're about to go through a whole lot bigger. And so coming from Whitney Economics, essentially highlighting that as of right now, with 200 licensed stores, and these were essentially forced open by lawsuits, and fortunately, a few of the clowns from the Office of Cannabis Management stepping down, as they've been forced to work in the best interest of the legal industry, highlighting that at the end of 2024, they are just under $1 billion in total sales projected, which is a massive increase of roughly 236% over 2023. And so, of course, the more legal stores we open, the more we're going to see legal sales get there. And what Whitney Economics is estimating is that next year, 2025, sales will exceed $1.3 billion and then $3.3 billion by 2027. Ultimately, it depends on how many legal outlets they allow to open up, how convenient and easy they make it for whether it's the MSOs, the mom and pop shops, or the CAURD cardholders that they were going to give priority access to, that many of them still haven't been able to get their shops that they were promised. All that to point out, these are the New York retail forecasts from Whitney, looking at 2020, 2021, 2022. They didn't move because New York was such a shit show and the illicit hemp-derived cannabis synthetic crap was running rampant. And last year they did about $300 million. With, I think it might have been 50 stores. Hopefully they were at that point. And then 2024 up to $900 million. So that represents that significant increase. And then things look better and better as long as they can open more and more stores at a pretty quick rate going forward. And so store potential, state is reporting roughly 20 million per week in sales, and with 205 stores open currently, putting them at an average sales per store at 5.1 million, ranking them 16th out of the 38 states with some form of legal access, which is kind of pathetic because come on, you're New York, you're the Big Apple, you ought to be leading the way on this. And then interestingly enough, licensing needs, Whitney determined that to satisfy 75% of the total market, New York would need 1,230 retail licenses. And he wrote that the theoretical maximum of retail licenses in New York is 1,600 to 1,700, depending on the number of full-time employees. And this isn't even close to the number of illicit outlets that were running rampant in 2022 to 2023. Fortunately, a big number of them have been cut off. However, as of October 2nd, there are 823 active or in-process retail dispensary licenses, of which only 205 have opened. And further compounding the store openings, many licenses lack the money to make these stores operational. Sadly, a big reason for that is one of the lawsuits faced by the OCM is that they were given a lot of money for their social equity fund by a hedge fund in Chicago, and then they found out they were pocketing a bunch of the money. So that doesn't help. And then on top of that, many of the applicants who received preliminary licenses could see their licenses expire before they get the funding necessary to build out their operations, because it seems like up until now, the Office of Cannabis Management was not interested in working in the best interests of New Yorkers. Sad reality, but true. And so unlicensed operators also still stand to be the biggest obstacle, cutting into a lot of sales, not giving tax revenue back into the legal economy, and ultimately selling product that is crap and has unintended side effects. But we wish you luck, New York. That is essentially the gist. Full link in the comments to go through that. Well, from Green Market Report, Massachusetts celebrates pivotal chapter of cannabis industry maturation as they're proud to reach cannabis sales in recent months that have pushed the state's all-time adult use revenue above the $6 billion mark. And so a new report here, which I will link in the comments if you want to go through that, describes the past fiscal year from July 2023 to June 2024 as a pivotal year, helping Massachusetts reach new highs. And so, of course, if you're interested, I invite you to pause to read, but not going to spend too much time on this, as it's one of the older markets that is maturing on the east, and we're much more focused on the new markets that are going to drive some more of this growth. But hey, good to see that Massachusetts is still continuing to grow this far along. While an update from Minnesota, from MJ Biz Daily, as rec cannabis market on target for 2025 launch, regulators say. So just wanted to share that, even as some potential businesses say they're concerned that the process is taking too long, it does seem like Minnesota is still going to launch in 2025. So that's really the only update that we have as of right now. Expecting to be finalized by the first quarter of 2025. Businesses will begin or be allowed to begin operations after those rules are set. And so maybe summer of next year. Of course, we'll keep you updated if we get more information out of Minnesota. While from Kansas, wanted to share as voters support legalizing cannabis and oppose the current direction of the country. So hope Kansas citizens show up to vote next week, because at least from my understanding, there seems to only be one option that's really going to help turn things around. And then all that to bring you down to how strong is support for legal cannabis in Kansas. More than 72% of Kansas voters say they support legalizing med. About 56, more than 50, support legalizing for rec use as well. So Kansas has come a long way. Hopefully we see the legislators work in the best interests of the Kansas people based on these new findings and what they ultimately want. While Delaware officials will hold first cannabis license lottery this week ahead of adult use market launch. Now again, this is an older one. The Office of Marijuana Commissioner held a lottery a few weeks back, and of more than 1,200 applications it received over the summer, 727 advanced to the lottery stage. And so a big number, considering that they're not planning to give out that many licenses from my understanding. This initial drawing will include applicants for cultivation, manufacturing, and lab testing licenses. And it's worth noting that the office said it expects to hold a separate lottery for retailers in December. So this doesn't even include retailers. And so again, we just hope that this gets going faster and moves along sooner than later, ultimately. But we will update you once we know more about who's going to be able to set up shop and supply the adult use market come Delaware when that time rolls around. Last one from Marijuana Moment, as the National Accountants Group urges IRS and Treasury to update cannabis tax guidance ahead of federal rescheduling. And if this isn't writing on the wall for what's to come, I don't know what is, and of course, uplisting is the day we're all waiting out for. For that, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants is also requesting that the federal financial agencies give cannabis companies a chance to correct tax deduction claims they've made in anticipation of a potential federal rescheduling decision, after the IRS notified stakeholders that it intends to recoup any payouts that might have been made prior to the government's potentially finalizing a rule moving cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. And so it seems like the IRS still wants to go after these cannabis companies, especially because some of them chose not to pay their taxes for this past year, thinking that we'd get rescheduling before the end of the year. Now that might not be the case. So thank you, AICPA, for at least looking out for these companies and, calling for some sort of resolution. I will update you, of course, as this story is developing on whether or not these MSOs will be hit majorly from kind of trying to dodge their taxes and acting like any other business in the U.S., which, again, can't really blame them. But ultimately, you got to remember that the government never moves quickly, and there was risk with them taking that approach. And so, last few ones from March 2 millions. ATB dropped their view of MSOS stocks fair values if both Florida and Schedule 3 were to pass and become a reality. And so here are their potential returns. We've got a list of MSOs, including Tier 1s and a few others, and their potential according to March 2 millions. Now, this differs from what ATB shows. So, of course, source ATB Capital Markets. Take from this what you will, but many of the MSOs looking as attractive as ever. Current price target, not their actual prices, but the main thing, potential fair value, combined impact, most likely looking at if Florida only, if rescheduling only, compounded impact of Florida passing, and then rescheduling becoming a reality as it should be. And so take from that what you will. Of course, this is not advice. I'd say this is very conservative as well. And this doesn't include potential uplisting once we get all that sorted out and we end the discrimination so that these businesses are treated like any other American business. And they should be, because of course this is one of the few American-made industries still out there changing America for the better. The big public health victory, youth use going down, opioid overdoses going down, combating the opioid crisis, legal jobs, tax revenue, boosting local economies. It's essentially the biggest public health victory that no one knows is even going on. Update here from Jason J. Wild, so thank you, and I missed this one because it was from a few weeks ago, but great news, the First Circuit just scheduled oral arguments in our appeal for December 5 at 9 a.m. in Boston. This is a very good development. The court does not always hold oral argument on an appeal, nor hold it this quickly, and the December 5th date means that we are now on track to proceed ahead of the schedule he had previously envisioned. And so take from that what you will. This is 3 days after the first ALJ hearing that is still going to take place on December 2nd. And so, again, who knows what this ultimately means, but many were not expecting this to move along that quickly. So while none of us were really expecting the Supreme Court to save us, could they be ultimately the deciding factor? Who knows? This is still just speculation, but again, wanted to share that I think that's very positive that 3 days after the ALJ hearing, we're going to have oral arguments for this case. And ultimately, it seems like the Supreme Court, now with the Chevron Deference deferred, so they don't have to defer to the DEA on what is medical and what isn't, the stage is set. And so this is in reference to an article Jungle Java shared. Update, federal government tells you to believe what it says, not what it does. And of course, always look at actions as opposed to the fluff. We learned that from politicians in case that could invalidate federal cannabis prohibition. And so for another little snippet of info down here that I invite you to take a look at. Now again, speculation, we don't know. The court could rule that the CSA is ineffective for cannabis, effectively decriminalizing cannabis federally. That would be fantastic. What are the consequences? Read through here. Or the court could rule that cannabis has valid medical uses and the CSA is invalid as to the current scheduling, while SCOTUS may force the FDA and DEA to reschedule cannabis, creating ripple effects if cannabis is treated as a federally regulated pharmaceutical product. Let's hope it doesn't go that route, but again, we don't exactly know. All that to point out, thank you, Weetree420. That is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos. Now, we'll catch you next week for This Week in Cannabis News after a very big week of MSO earnings, election results, and Florida Amendment 3 results. Take care.